Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all sorts of good stuff. And guys, Happy New Year. It is a brand new year. It is now officially 2021. Goodbye, 2020. Don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out. What a miserable year that was. Not what we wanted at all. You know, it's funny. 2020 started as a year with such promise, such hope, had so many big things ahead of us, and then it all kind of went to the crapper. But you know what? That's the great thing about time, man. We got a new year. It's 2021. I hope you guys are able to start it off in a great way. I hope you kicked out 2020 last night in a fun but safe way. And I hope all you guys are recovered from whatever festivities you had last night. And it's awesome to be here in 2021. Anyway, guys, we have a number of things to talk about here today. You know, originally I wasn't going to do a show on New Year's Day. But, you know, I thought, why not? Let's kick off the New Year's and have a really nice fun time here together. Always good to get together with other people in the film fan community, talk about our favorite things and talk about some streaming, some shows, some movies, and the hope that is 2020 right now. Anyway, guys, want to remind you, if you have not done so already, why don't you take a second and click on that subscribe button, become a subscriber to the YouTube channel. It'll keep you up to date on all the things that we've got going on here. Also, guys, don't forget, if you like these videos, make sure you leave a comment, hit the thumbs up button, all that sorts of good stuff. So here's how today's show is going to go, guys. We're going to spend the first part of the show taking some main topics that we've got set up here. We're going to get to those in just a second. And then we're going to go into the second half of the show, which is taking your live questions. Now, how do you get in a live question on the show? It's really easy. Simply use the tip link that's near the top of the description of the video. You can just click on it there, or you can enter it in manually at streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. But I want to point this out again. A lot of times you guys send in these great questions and you support the channel with your tips, and that's great, but you forget to put in your name. See that top line in the graphic there? Your name. Make sure you guys put in your name, because if you support this channel, guys, I want to give you a shout out, and I don't want to just say anonymous, unless you want your name to be anonymous, in which case that's perfectly fine too. But just please try to make sure to fill in that name, because I want to make sure you get your shout out on the show. All right, guys. With that down, we've got a couple of topics set up here for today, and then the rest of the show is just going to be kind of a laid back, relaxed, taking your live questions, things like that. So how do we select our main topics here in the John Campea Show? Well, it's really easy. You guys select the main topics on the John Campea Show. Whenever you come across a big topic or story that you think should be a main topic here on the show, just head on over 24/7 anytime to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's totally free. And then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's move on to main topic number one. And our first main topic of 2021 comes to us from Ryan Fulmer, who writes, "Hey, John and crew. Hopefully you're having a good day. I am having a good day so far, thank you. I just heard from the Hollywood Reporter that AMC is selling $125 million of their stocks to survive the pandemic/bankruptcy. Do you think investors will help out and more people will buy it? Or do you think this is the end of AMC theaters? What are your thoughts on this?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, look, no getting around it. One of the big stories, if not the big story as far as our movie spheres go, of 2021 has been, you know, the damage, maybe irreversible damage, being done to the beloved movie theaters and all that kind of stuff. And things have looked dark and looked bleak, and they may be damaged beyond return at this point. They may be. But a new story just came out that he's referring to here that talks about AMC Theaters is now raising another $125 million to keep themselves afloat. This is interesting. All right. This is interesting for a couple of years, or for a couple of reasons. One of the main reasons this is interesting is because it shows signs of life. It shows signs of life for the movie theaters. Maybe not, like I said, not all is sunshine and rainbows. We're not saying that everything is now good for AMC theaters and all that ails them has been cured. Not at all. But the fact that they are now in a round of raising another $125 million, it at least suggests a couple of things. It suggests that they do see a way out of this. Now, we look at things like the big Disney announcement that they made a couple of weeks back, right? At the Investors Day meeting, when they announced all the new MCU shows, all the new Star Wars shows, all the new Pixar stuff, all that kind of stuff. The vast majority of the movie projects they announced, they're saying is full theatrical. We've gone over big lists before on the show in the past couple of weeks of all the movies that they announced that they say they're going to keep theatrical. We've even got Warner Brothers now backtracking on a few things, and it looks like Dune is going to come out theatrical. It looks like one or two other things may come out theatrical in 2021. They're talking about movies beyond 22. They're re-putting down that they're going to be theatrical movies. That has given sparks of hope. Again, I'm not saying that fixes things, and I'm not saying that's going to turn the tide, but it does at least give sparks of hope. And now we've got AMC who think, you know what, we do believe there is a possibility we can get out of this. Therefore, let's raise another $125 million. Investors are stepping back up to shore them up a little bit, and this might be a solution. Now, this is what comes to us from the folks over at the Hollywood Reporter regarding this story, and they write this. Cinema giant AMC Theaters has registered up to 50 million additional shares for sale to raise up to 124.75, so basically $125 million to make it through the coronavirus pandemic. We intend to use the net proceeds from the sale of the Class A common stock offered by this prospectus for general corporate purposes, which may include the repayment, refinancing, redemption, or repurchase of existing indebtedness or capital stock, working capital, capital expenditures, and other investments, AMC Theaters said in its filing. In other words, what AMC Theaters is saying here right now is that we are going to use this money to stay afloat. That's what they're saying. Because on top of the signals they've been getting from Disney and other studios, we're hearing in the UK, the government in the UK is saying they believe they're going to have the coronavirus under control, whatever that means, by spring. Now, you got to remember in the UK, they're also doing a pretty better job of acquiring and distributing the vaccines. But we are getting millions of Americans have been given the vaccine now. Are we out of the woods? No, not at all. But the industry and AMC in particular believe they see a light at the end of the tunnel. And they believe, whether they're right or wrong, that if they can make it to the end of that tunnel, they can at least get back on their feet and survive for the foreseeable future. Will it? Can they? Is the best case scenario going to play out here? I don't know. I still have some dubious doubts about all that. The question is, you guys, what do you think about that? What do you think about the fact that AMC is about to raise another $125 million? They seem to think that will get them through to when they need to be back on their feet. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2, shall we? And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by James Bond. Oh, good on you, James Bond. And James Bond writes, "Hey, John, 4 MCU movies, theatrical at any rate, Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Eternals, and Spider-Man 3, are releasing in 2021. Hopefully. How do you rank these movies based on your anticipation?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And look, I'm not going to sit here and do a ranking of them, but it is an interesting collage of films, right? When you're looking at Shang-Chi, Eternals, Black Widow, Spider-Man. These are like 4 pretty different kinds of movies for Marvel. And it's good that you mentioned that Spider-Man 3 is an MCU movie, not a Marvel movie, because those are 2 different things. But we've got 4 very different films coming out. So which one do I think is going to be the best movie of the 4 MCU films coming out this year? I'm not going to give a rank or anything. I'll just tell you which one I think is going to be best and why right now I believe this one will be best. Let's look at a couple of them right now, first of all. Let's look at Shang-Chi. I am so excited about Shang-Chi, especially when I found out that one of the stars of one of my absolute favorite shows on television right now, Kim's Convenience, is going to star, Simu Liu, I believe his name, is going to star good Canadian kid, in Shang-Chi. Very excited about that. That's awesome. Also, the director of the film, see if I can bring this up here. The director of Shang-Chi is a guy by the name of Destin Creighton. I hope I never know if I'm pronouncing his name right, but he also directed a fabulous film that I saw not too long ago called Just Mercy with Jamie Foxx and Michael B. Jordan. Terrific movie, beautifully directed. This is a director who knows how to tell a really good narrative using really good, deep characters. Fantastic. So when you can get a director to bring those types of sensibilities to a movie, there's a lot to be excited about. Not to mention, just the nature of the character carries a lot of promise for a lot of great action, a lot of great stuff. I am very, 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 very excited for Shang-Chi. Is it number one? Do I think that's the one that's going to be the best one yet? No, not necessarily. I'm not putting my money on that one. But I am very excited about it. All right, then, let's look at another one. The one that's supposed to come out next, which is, of course, Black Widow. Now, Black Widow, you guys know for me, there are two characters in the MCU that I kind of feel the same way about, and that is Hawkeye and Black Widow. These are two characters that I love in the MCU when they're part of an ensemble, right? When they're in Avengers movies or Civil War movies. When Hawkeye and Black Widow are in the mix in the MCU movies, I think they're terrific characters. I love them. But I have never, and you guys may have heard me say this before, I have never really been all that interested in solo Hawkeye or Black Widow movies. I think they're terrific in the MCU, but I've never been interested in seeing them doing solo stuff. And, you know, maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. I don't know, however you want to take it. But that's just how I kind of feel about it. That being said, the trailers for Black Widow, while I don't think have blown the doors off, I think they've been pretty solid. And you can't help, you know, but by at least be a little bit intrigued by the casting. I mean, the casting looks terrific. Scarlett Johansson obviously is Scarlett Johansson. So what more do you need to say about that? Florence Pugh, who we know is going to be in several of the other MCU shows. So clearly this Black Widow movie is going to be a launching point for Yelena. This is obviously going to be a launching point for her. But then you've got like Oscar caliber Rachel Weisz in there. She's amazing. I love her. And then you got David Harbour in there. Now, David Harbour was just Hellboy, and that movie absolutely sucked. But I still like David Harbour. And the thing I've liked about the Black Widow trailers the most have actually been the David Harbour stuff as her dad. That's as the Russian Captain America, basically. That is the parts of the trailer I have loved the most. So while I have never been all that interested in a Black Widow movie, I will say I am looking forward to this. And it's not to mention how long have we been waiting for it. So in general, it is one I'm looking forward to, but it is not the one that I'm guessing right now or anticipating will be the best one of the bunch. All right, let's look at another one then. Let's look at one that another one that's supposed to be in theaters already. And maybe the most impressive cast lineup out of any of the ones that are on this list right now. Let's talk about the Eternals. So Eternals is, to me, the next Guardians of the Galaxy, if you will. You know, Marvel and Kevin Feige rolled the dice in a huge way. They took a huge risk doing Guardians of the Galaxy. This weird ensemble of random characters that very few people outside of hardcore comic book readers had ever even heard of or know anything about. And this was in the midst when the MCU was doing things like, you know, Captain America and Iron Man and Thor and Hulk and having these things. And then they came out and did Guardians of the Galaxy. Eternals, to me, represents that next big roll of the dice. Because again, like Guardians of the Galaxy, it's a bunch of characters that, for the most part, the average mainstream movie audience has never heard of the Eternals, don't know any of the characters in the Eternals, and any of that stuff. So it kind of represents, and it's on a different level, right? It's a very cosmic level. not really rooted in the types of issues we've seen in the MCU so far. So it kind of represents that next level of gamble for them. But they're bringing all the big guns to bear. Because when you look at the cast of Eternals, you're talking major, major talent. Obviously, number one, right off the top, the headliner of the movie is Angelina Jolie. Who would have ever thought Angelina Jolie was going to do a comic book movie? Even after watching, guys, help me out in the live chat. What's the name of the movie she's in again where she bends the bullets? She's in with James McAvoy. And by the way, Chris Pratt is in that movie too. What's the name of the one where she Wanted? Thank you, Omar and Richard and Nay. Wanted, right? Where she, by the way, a lot of people forget Chris Pratt's in that movie too. A lot of people forget Chris Pratt's in that movie. He's hilarious in that movie. Very small role, but he's funny in it. By the way, I like Wanted. I know a lot of people make fun of, the loom of fate. I don't care. I thought that was fun. I like Wanted. I always wanted, no pun intended, I always wanted a Wanted sequel. They talked for a long time about getting a Wanted sequel, by the way. Oh, and thank you to SMJ for throwing in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you so much for that, SMJ. Thanks for supporting the channel, dude. I've always wanted a Wanted sequel. Anyway, even after Wanted, you never really thought Angelina Jolie would do a comic book movie, but here she is. But listen to the rest. Gemma Chan. If you guys don't really know Gemma Chan, she was in Captain Marvel, and she's playing a totally different character now, because in Captain Marvel, she was all in makeup. You didn't recognize her anyway. Gemma Chan, I took notice of Gemma Chan in Crazy Rich Asians. She is one of the male or female, stupidly, ridiculously gorgeous creatures walking the face of the earth. Like male or female, I don't care. Like when she comes on screen in Crazy Rich Asians, everything stops. Like this girl is just insanely beautiful. I really liked her in that movie as well. Of course, we saw her in Captain Marvel, and that was cool and everything. But we go back, look at this cast. So we got Angelina Jolie, Gemma Chan, Salma Hayek is in it. Hello. Then you've got your Game of Thrones reunion. You've got Richard Madden and Kit Harington. So, you've got the Starks back together there. Richard Madden's been really hot lately, as a matter of fact. Kumail Nanjiani, who I adore. I love Kumail Nanjiani, even if his Stuber movie completely sucked. But whatever, I love him. So you got Kumail Nanjiani in there. Brian Henry, who I adore. I was never really familiar with him before Atlanta. Really started to like him in Atlanta. I mean, this is a killer cast. An absolutely killer cast on this whole cosmic level. And Armando sends in a super chat badge as well in the live chat. Thank you, Armando. Just an absolutely ridiculously killer cast, top to bottom. Galactic scale stuff. There's whispers about maybe even a young Thanos being in it, because this is a story, Kevin Feige says, is going to span thousands of years. It's going to span thousands of years, this one movie. So, and for those who know the comics, there is a connection with Thanos there. So there's some whispers we might even see a younger version of Thanos at some point. Whether they do or don't, there's a lot of reasons to be excited about it. I know Eternals is Robert Meyer Burnett's most anticipated movie when it comes to all the comic book movies. He's most looking forward to this one. But it is still not the one that I'm guessing or predicting will be the best one out of the MCU bunch coming in 2021. Although I am very much looking forward to it. So that only leaves us with one more, which makes it kind of obvious which movie I am most looking forward to, and the one that I think will be the best. And right now, that is Spider-Man 3. Now, the main reason, and this isn't a very exciting reason, it's just a very basic common sense reason. The main reason I think right now that I'd be willing to put down $2 on betting that Spider-Man 3 will be the best of those movies is simply this. We know what we're getting with it. We've already had 2 Spider-Man movies directed by the same guy, by Watts, who's going to be directing the Fantastic Four movie, by the way. Spider-Man Homecoming was fantastic. I loved it. Spider-Man Far From Home was not quite as good, but still very, very enjoyable. Very enjoyable. We've got the wonky bonkersness of having Doc Ock back. with Molina coming back. We got Jamie Foxx coming back as Electro. There are still rumors. We'll still call them rumors at this point. There are still rumors, although, I mean, it's looking fairly certain that we are going to see Maguire and Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield back as well. We know that it's going to be tied into WandaVision and the upcoming Doctor Strange movie, all that kind of. So there's a lot of things, unlike Shang-Chi, which we don't right now have we don't have any sample size yet. This is the first Shang-Chi movie. So we're going to see what we get. A lot of excitement. Sure. Black Widow, and, I've got my apprehensions about Black Widow, but the trailers have looked good. Eternals, again, it's an unknown quantity. It's an unknown element right now. No pun intended. We don't know what we're getting with it yet. But with Spider-Man 3, we know the director, we've seen this cast, they have made Spider-Man movies before, and we know their quality. So right now, if I had to put down $2 to make my guess as to which will be the best movie out of this group, right now, the one thing I have the biggest sample size of and I feel most comfortable with is Spider-Man 3. Now, that doesn't mean Shang-Chi or Eternals or even Black Widow can't come out and surprise us and blow Spider-Man 3 out of the water. But right now, that's where I'm at. But it is an exciting year. It is an exciting year. If we do indeed get to this light at the end of the tunnel, we got a lot of good stuff coming up. And then there's all the Disney Plus stuff on top of that. Let's see what DC and the folks at Warner Brothers are able to roll out. A lot of people very excited about the Justice League miniseries coming to HBO, the Snyder Cut. A lot of people excited about that. I mean, this could be a great year. But then again, we thought that at the beginning of 2020. We saw how that turned out. But hope's alive for now. Let's hope for the best. Let's believe in the best. Guys, the question is, out of the MCU offerings that we're getting in 2021, apparently, which one do you think will be the best film? Jump down into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. Okay, guys, with all that down and out of the way, let's move on to main topic number 3, shall we? And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Nick Whitaker. And Nick Whitaker writes, "We all love Henry Cavill as Superman, or at least we all should. Absolutely, he's my all-time favorite Superman. Anyway, Henry was 30 years old by the time Man of Steel was released, meaning he was probably 28 to 29 while filming. He's going to be 38 years old in less than 6 months. How crazy of how fast time flies, guys. He's going to be 38 in less than 6 months. He's a beefcake and in amazing shape, but that won't last forever. Even if they start shooting this year, which doesn't seem likely, the absolute earliest a sequel would come out is 2022, a full 9 years later. Looking at it from this angle, how hopeful are you for his, not just any Superman sequel, but for his return as Superman in a sequel?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. Appreciate that. Okay, look. We have been talking a lot recently about the word going around. I was the first one to tell you back a couple of months ago that I got told by people I know connected to the situation, 2 similar but slightly different accounts from 2 different connections I have connected closely with the Warner Brothers situation. What they both said was that J.J. Abrams is going to be doing a Superman movie. I mean, there was more to it than that, but the basic of it is, what they both said was that J.J. Abrams they handed him the keys to Superman, and he's going to do a Superman movie. Now, that's what they both said in agreement. The one thing that they said that differed from each other was, one said that J.J. has already decided Henry Cavill is going to continue to be Superman. The other said that JJ right now is still considering Henry Cavill, but he's keeping his options open at the moment. So which one of those to be true? If either one of those 2 things are true, we'll find out soon enough. But we've been seeing in recent days more and more leaks coming out that, yes, JJ is moving forward with Superman and all this kind of stuff. So we'll see how that turns out. I don't feel confident enough in it to call it a fact at this point. So it is what it is. But, they raise a very good question. When Henry shot Man of Steel, a masterpiece of the genre, the most underrated comic book film of all time, ladies and gentlemen, When Henry shot Man of Steel, he was, 28, 29 years old. Physique is a big thing about him. He's going to be 38 here pretty soon. Can Henry Cavill maintain the physicality needed to play Superman? Because when we talk about an actor taking over a role in a comic book film, we'd like to think they can at least play it for 10 years. 10 years gives us the opportunity for 3, maybe 4 films. So we'd like to see the idea that they can play that. Can Henry Cavill at this point play Superman for another 10 years moving forward? Can he be, like if J.J. Abrams is taking over Superman, can Henry Cavill be the guy that can be Superman for J.J. Abrams and DC moving forward for at least another 8 to 10 years? Can he be that guy? Well, let's look at a couple things. He is turning 38 years old, yes. But look at this dude at 38 years old. Look at right now. Is there any doubt? Is there any doubt that this guy can be? Is there any doubt that this guy is Superman? I mean, look at him. Look at this idiot with those idiot muscles. Look at this guy. Is there any doubt that this is Superman? Of course, there's no doubt. Of course, there's no doubt that this is Superman. And by the way, too, recently he did that. He did this video. I don't know if you guys saw it, but a couple of months back, during the pandemic, I don't know if you know this, but Henry Cavill is a major gamer. He loves game, particularly World of Warcraft, which, makes me love the guy even more. But he's a major gamer. So he put out this video on YouTube that blew up the internet. That was basically him building a brand new gaming PC, right? I don't know if you guys saw it. Now, everybody talked about it, and everybody, who was it? There was a website. I can't remember if it was Cinema Blend or if it was, I can't remember who it was, but somebody wrote this article that writes, Henry Cavill posts video of him in tank top building gaming PC, impregnates millions. I mean, it was just something silly like that. But he did put this together, this video. Look, he was putting together this PC. I just want to point out the absolute stupid, ridiculous size of this guy's arms. I mean, this is him approaching 38 years old, okay? This is Henry Cavill approaching 38 years old. All right? So can this guy be Superman? Of course he can be Superman. Now, the question, though, becomes getting back to the longer term thing. With Henry Cavill being ready to turn 38 years old, can he at this point, if you're J.J. Abrams or another director who's looking to pick up the Superman franchise and move forward with Superman, can you look at Henry Cavill and say, this can be my Superman for the next 10 years? Because that's generally what they're hoping to get. Can Henry Cavill still be this at 48, at 49? That's a legitimate question. That's a fair question. I will answer that question with this. I'm just going to pop up a random picture right now of some random 48, 49-year-old. A guy's approaching 49 years old, okay? Just bringing up a picture of this guy's about to turn 49. This is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson at 48 years old. This is Dwayne Johnson at 48. He's about to turn 49, but this picture was taken with him being 48 years old. Now, I'm not saying that Henry Cavill has the genetics of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I mean, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson comes from a lineage of professional wrestlers and these huge, huge dudes. I don't know what Henry's lineage is, whatever. I'm not saying that he has the same genetics as Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is, in today's world, knowing what we know about human physiology, if Henry Cavill wants to be still in that shape 10 years from now, yes, he can still be in that shape 10 years from now. I mean, maybe Henry Cavill can't be Superman 20 years from now at 58, but at 48, if this is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson at 48, and Henry doesn't even have to look this good, then I don't see any reason why Henry Cavill cannot continue to be. Now, this is all assuming a couple of big assumptions. Number one, that they are going to make more Superman movies. Again, I believe the information that they are going to, but still, you have to acknowledge that's still up in the air a little bit. Assumption number 2 is that they even want Henry Cavill to continue to be Superman. So I believe they do, but again, that's not verified, so that's information that's still up in the air. But if we make those assumptions, for the sake of the discussion, that they are going to make more Superman movie, they are going to use Henry Cavill, can he indeed be that guy? To me, there's no question. There's no question. He absolutely can be, nay, is that guy. So I think he absolutely can. I think he's a terrific Superman. Not everybody agrees, and that's totally fine. Question is, guys, what do you guys think? At approaching 38 years old, can Henry Cavill be Superman for another 10-year stretch as new filmmakers come in to take over the character? I believe the answer is yes. Maybe you don't. Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down and out of the way, let's move on and start taking your live questions, shall we? And once again, if you want to send in a live comment or question, simply use the tip link that's near the top of the description of this video. Just click on it there, or you can enter it in manually. You see it down there at the bottom, www.streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show, and of course, you'll be supporting the channel at the same time. And all of us here associated with the channel, thank you guys very, very much for that support. Okay, guys, let's jump on over and start getting caught up. And by the way, I want to acknowledge again here that we are further behind on getting caught up on all the questions than we normally are. We had a couple of days off around the Christmas time, but you guys kept sending questions in during the holidays, which was awesome. Thank you for that. But it means we haven't got caught up. I've put up a couple of companion videos the last couple of days. We're still not caught up, but we will be caught up here in the next 24 hours, 24 or 48 hours. If we don't get through all the questions today, we'll get caught up in a companion video this weekend because we're getting there. I see the end of the tunnel. So I just wanted to acknowledge to you guys that you guys who've been sending in questions, you've been waiting a little bit longer than normal. You know, I like to get questions answered the day they get sent in. At max, I like to get them answered the day after they get sent in. But I just wanted to acknowledge that I have been falling behind a little bit because of the holiday season and I'm moving. We're doing renovations on the house, all that kind of stuff. But enough of the excuses. We're going to get caught up. Let's start doing that right now. All right, Ahmed Z writes, Cinema Blend reported on August 10th that Kiefer Sutherland, good Canadian kid, indeed he is, said he was all in to return as Jack Bauer. If this is true, could Disney Fox bring it back? I love that you love season 1. Most bingeable show I've ever saw. Yeah, the season 1 of 24. And there were other good seasons too, but season 1 of 24 was wonderful. And infinitely bingeable. Here's the thing. The actor wanting to come back to do it is not what's going to make a studio decide to bring it back. That's near the bottom of their list of considerations, to be honest with you. I mean, look, they just tried relaunching 24 without Kiefer Sutherland, right? So they obviously, whether or not Kiefer Sutherland wanted to do it was not super high on their priority list. And Kiefer Sutherland's great. I love Kiefer Sutherland. I really like that show he just did. What was the one where he became the president of the United States? Designated Survivor. I really liked that show. I mean, it's not The West Wing, but I thought it was pretty damn good. I enjoyed it. I was happy. I was sad when it got canceled, happy when Netflix picked it up, sad when Netflix canceled it again. But I like the show myself. But yeah, I don't think him wanting to come back is going to move the needle either way. I don't think that's going to lessen the chances of the show coming back. I don't think it increases the chances of the show coming back. The headline, actor willing to work. I don't know that that's going to change things for Disney or Fox at this point, but who knows? Listen, we know in the streaming era, everybody loves IP. Everybody loves existing IP, existing recognizable IP. So it's certainly a possibility. All right. Let's move on here. Andrew's questions we addressed in a companion video yesterday. Another one from Ahmed writes, have you ever seen the Special Forces Unit Canadian TV show Flashpoint? I never have. I believe that is one that started coming out after I moved out of Canada. So I just never got around to seeing it. It's one of my all-time favorite, nail-biting favorite shows. And surprisingly, it's not an American show. Also, have you seen the show The Unit starring Dennis Haysbert, also talking about 24, alongside 24, my favorite? No, I never did watch that one. I never did watch The Unit. Although I was intrigued because I really like Dennis Haysbert. I mean, he's got one of the best voices in the business. Now he's doing insurance commercials, but whatever. But he will always be the president from 24 to me. He will always be the president from 24 for me. Thanks for writing that in, Ahmed. All right, next up, we got Hugh Janis, who writes, is it just me, or has there been a growing stigma in Hollywood against the notion of recasting than in the past? I believe no matter how iconic a character is bigger than any one performer. Is it not the actor's job to serve the story and not vice versa? Yes, that is true. However, there is a difference to that as well, right? And that's this. For some properties, like let's take Harry, again, let's go back to the Harry Potter example. Right? Richard Harris passes away and they recast Dumbledore. They don't write Dumbledore out of the story. They don't, rework something around Dumbledore. They don't use unused footage of Richard Harris to replace the new Dumbledore and write something around him. No, what did they do? They ran out, they got Gambon, and they brought him in, and he became the new Dumbledore. And guess what? Movies didn't miss a beat. Yeah, at first it was like, whoa, it's a different Dumbledore. But then everybody adjusted. And it was no problem. Did we miss Richard Harris? Of course we did. He's one of the greatest actors of all time. But we moved on. They moved on. They recast the role. And they got a new guy in. And by the way, Samuel Champion sent in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you for that, Samuel. Appreciate that, man. So you can recast. The important thing is not the performer. Obviously, the performer is important, but the important thing is the character. Character comes first. Characters are not there to serve the actors. The actors are there to serve the characters. The one part, though, where it becomes a little more tricky is when you are reviving a franchise, and part of the appeal for a studio in reviving the franchise is the original nostalgia, right? The original nostalgia. And Ro Majerick sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Ro. Appreciate that, man. I love the little bit, the workout badge. That's great. Anyway, sorry, what was I saying? Oh, yes. In the new trend today of revitalizing older franchises, specifically for the purpose of trying to recapture the original nostalgia, then having the original performers perform that becomes an important part of that puzzle, right? That's an important piece of the puzzle. Like, yes, you can reboot Bad Boys. You can reboot Bad Boys. Easy enough. But what you can't do is bring back Bad Boys after over a decade of being away and say, this is the Bad Boys you remember, and here's Will Smith, but we're recasting Martin Lawrence. When the nostalgia of the original is the main thing that the studio said, yeah, we can greenlight this because we'll recapture that nostalgia for the people who used to watch the movies that came out decades ago. That becomes a little bit of a different ballgame. So, like, I always kind of believe that even in the MCU, even Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, I love Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. He was practically born to play Iron Man. That's great. But I completely believe that in this ongoing franchise, you can recast Tony Stark. And everybody around the internet goes, what? Yeah, no, it's true. You can say whatever you want, but it's true. You can recast him. And guess what? The audience at first will go, this is not our Tony Stark, but then they just adjust to it and we'd be used to it. Maybe we'd like him more than we liked Robert Downey Jr. Maybe we won't like him as much as Robert Downey Jr. Maybe we'll like him just the same. But the point is, they'd move on. Iron Man 1 to Iron Man 2, they recasted Rhodey. Now, granted, he wasn't the lead character of the movie, but still. Hey, that's Don Cheadle. Yeah, it's me. Get over it. That was a great line they did with Don Cheadle. So I believe that. But it is a different thing in this modern way of doing movies, of sometimes just revitalizing older franchises. And one of the main motivations for the studio to do it is that original sense of nostalgia. Then it becomes a little bit more important to get those same characters and those same actors, because that's part of what the studio wanted in the first place. So yeah, there's a little bit of a different thing there. There's a little bit of a different thing there. Okay, hold on a second here. All right, we move on. Next up, where were we at here? Ryan Lohner writes, I have no insider info, but I very much got the idea that Wonder Woman 84 wasn't allowed to make any forward progress with the characters because Warner Brothers had little solid concept of the franchise's future at the time it was made. No, I disagree with that, and here's why I disagree with that. One of the things that made the first Wonder Woman work so well, and one of the things that was important to them at the time was, let's isolate Wonder Woman from everything else in the DCEU so we don't have to worry about anything in the DCEU affecting the Wonder Woman character. We can set her in her own period of time, let's say World War I, far enough removed from everything in the DCEU that we can tell her own story without anything being interfered with from the outside DCEU. It was time isolation, and it worked. It worked really, really well. They wanted to capture that again with Wonder Woman 84. Isolate her far enough away in time that they can do whatever they wanted to do in the movie and not worry about the rest of the DCEU. It wasn't that, hey, Patty Jenkins, don't do anything that could affect the DCU. No, the whole reason Patty wanted to make that movie was so that her movie wouldn't be affected by anything in the DCEU. She wanted it, just like the first one, to be isolated in time. Now, they still did things that affected the DCEU, right? Wonder Woman never flew in Batman vs. Superman. Now she can fly. Wonder Woman in the DCEU was supposed to have been hidden away for 100 years. Guess what? They completely retconned that. She's out running around saving people. She wants to be unnoticed, but she's running around in this skimpy little gold shiny costume with a golden lasso that glows and everybody can see her. So they did do things that affected the DCEU, but because they were isolated in time, there was nothing in the DCEU that affected it. And that's kind of the way they're going. So yeah, that's why I don't think that was their mentality, Ryan. I don't think that was their mentality. All right, next up. An anonymous viewer writes, yes, good/bad storytelling is subjective, but say there's an aspiring writer who thinks that flat characters and on-the-nose dialogue are great and asks the pros, my stuff doesn't sell, what gives? Should he ignore their advice due to subjectivity? Hell no. Again, that's a misnomer. You're misrepresenting the context. First of all, flat characters. Okay, who says it's a flat character? That's a subjective opinion. If a character comes across as flat, that's a subjective opinion. What may be a flat character to me, you may look at and say, wait a minute, what are you talking about? That character is incredibly rich. And I may look at it and say the character's incredibly flat. Again, it comes down to a subjective opinion. Now, there are basic fundamental ideas in writing of things that commonly work, right? There are things in art that commonly work, but that doesn't mean they are objectively true. There's a difference between things that commonly work versus objectively true. And again, what you may consider to be on-the-nose dialogue, somebody else may not consider to be on-the-nose dialogue. Again, it becomes the idea of trying to quantify subjective opinion. You can't quantify subjective opinion. And that's kind of the big problem with it. Anyway, Gilbert Morales writes, hey, John and Rob. Rob's not here today, obviously. Fan from Puerto Rico. Thank you for watching from Puerto Rico. Who likes going to the theaters to watch mostly big movies? A fan from Puerto Rico who likes going to theaters to watch mostly big movies. But I've been thinking about starting to expand my movie watching experience, but I don't know where to start. Any movie recommendations, any era or genre? Wow. That's an extremely broad question, Gilbert. Here's what I would suggest. And I think a lot of the people in the chat board would probably suggest this as well. The one I would suggest, if you really, a good place to start, and a lot of people refer to this one a lot, is I would recommend going to the AFI Top 100. Now, if your whole purpose is to say, I've only really watched like a lot of big blockbusters. I want to expand my repertoire to get a really good taste of a lot of other types of cinema that's really good. What a lot of people have done, and by the way, some people make it like every 5 years, they'll do, I'm going to go through the entire AFI Top 100. And so this is a great place to start. This is a great place to start. Again, I'm not saying this is the de facto only true movie list for any movie fan. Like, there's a lot of great international cinema that isn't necessarily on this list as well, and all that kind of stuff. But if you're asking me just for a good place to start, to get a nice exposure to a lot of other different types of great classic film, the AFI Top 100 is definitely a good place to start. So yeah, I would recommend that one. And good on you, and enjoy your movie watching journey, Gilbert. Have a good time, man. All right, next up, an anonymous viewer writes, I have not seen Wonder Woman 84 yet because I felt like it was a test before they started to put all their movies onto HBO Max first, and I want theaters to stay. Now that the numbers are in, do you think they'll walk back their all 2021 movies are on HBO Max plan? Here's an interesting thing. We talked about this the other day. Wonder Woman 84, while it set a record for HBO for new subscribers in a weekend, Wonder Woman 84 only managed to get a little over 500,000 new subscribers for HBO Max. So if you put that into context, okay, put that into context. Let me see if I can find this. I wasn't planning on doing this, but let me see if I can find this here. Okay, let's do this for a second. Let's put it in context. Boy, something is going wrong with my computer right now. Oh, there we fix it. Okay, so if we assume financial, okay, let's assume for a second. We'll go over to the Campea Classroom for a second. If they had 500,000 new subscribers, right? 500,000 new subscribers signed up. And it was a little bit more than that. I think it might have been like 530, 540, whatever. It was north of 500,000, not 600,000, but north of 500,000. Okay. At the national average of movie tickets is before the pandemic started. The national average of movie tickets is $10. Now that includes the big expensive theaters, the super cheap theaters, the matinee prices, blah, blah. Overall across America, I think it's like $9.90-something, but whatever. The national average movie ticket price across the country, the average ticket, when you average it out, but before the pandemic, it was roughly about $10, give or take a few cents here and there. It was roughly $10. That means that 500,000 new subscribers represents only 5 million in box office. So as we step back and take a look at the bigger picture, if all of those people who had signed up for HBO Max that weekend to watch Wonder Woman 84, and remember, there were more people who watched Wonder Woman 84, right? There are other already pre-existing HBO subscribers who also watched Wonder Woman 84. Keep that in mind as well. But let's just talk about what the new subscribers that signed up. If all 500,000, and again, it was higher than that. It was like 530, 540, 550, whatever, something along those lines. But let's just round it to 500 for now. If all 500,000 of those people who subscribe to HBO Max, if all of them had gone to the theaters, let's say it had a normal opening weekend, and all of those had gone to the theaters, you'd be looking at 5 million in box office for an opening weekend. When we all know Wonder Woman 84 would have at least made 150 million opening weekend in a non-pandemic era, notwithstanding the pandemic, right? So pandemic notwithstanding, we know Wonder Woman 84 was most likely going to make it, probably wasn't going to hit 200 million. I don't expect it would have hit 200 million opening weekend, but I think it's safe to say Wonder Woman 84, under normal circumstances, probably would have made 150 million opening weekend. These are numbers that Warner Brothers is going to look at. These are numbers that they're going to look at. So my contention has always been, now there's a difference between what I think is going to happen and what I think should happen. So what I think should happen, what I've always thought they should do is stick to the theatrical model. Put Wonder Woman 84 in theaters. Make your $1 billion or $900,000 or $800,000 or $1.1 billion. And then 10 weeks later, put it on HBO Max. Get new subscribers for HBO Max. Have a both and. Why settle for an either or? Because great, you got 500,000 new subscribers that weekend. Great. That would have represented about $5 million in box office. You could have had a $150 million box office and still put it on HBO Max later. But anyway, this is getting into a bigger, a grander thing. Back to the question, though, specifically. Do I think that they will now walk back their all 2021 movies are on HBO Max plan? I don't think to a large scale. I don't think so. Like, we're about to get that new Denzel, Jared Leto, Rami Malek movie. And I'm forgetting the name of it. It's that murder thriller that's coming out. It's coming out in January. That's going to go straight to HBO Max. We already know, at least it very much looks like they're going to have to step back from Dune. I think Legendary is insisting that Dune goes to theater. So we're probably going to see that go to theaters. We will probably see King Richard, unless they make a big deal with Will Smith, because, you know, that Variety article pointed out Will Smith specifically has it in his contract that King Richard, the movie he's doing about Venus and Serena Williams' father, was specifically supposed to be in theaters. And he can force that. Now, they might do some wheeling and dealing with Will Smith and get a deal cut, but I do believe we will see Warner Brothers and HBO backtrack on a couple of those movies, but I don't think the majority of them. The rest we'll just have to wait and see. Anyway, thanks for writing that in, Anonymous. Next up, Caleb writes, for me, I don't think Donner would say he's coming back unless a script is written. Warner Brothers has seen it, and there is a decent possibility that they will greenlight it. At his age, I doubt he's going around committing to things with little chance of happening. Oh, listen, I completely the opposite, Caleb. I think at his age, he's more than willing to commit to things that may not necessarily happen. Are you kidding? At his age, like I might even have to do it? Okay, sure, I'm committed to it. Yeah, no, look, this is standard operating procedure for the development and life cycle of a potential movie project. A producer has an idea for a movie, or maybe options a script, or commissions a screenwriter to write a script. Either way, many different ways you can get to that first stage. Then they start to shop that script to the talent agencies and whatever, or they can go other ways as well. But one way to do it is you shop it to the talent agencies, try to get a big star or two attached to it, and then maybe even get a director attached to it. We have all seen hundreds of examples of movies of this movie's going to get made and this big superstar actor has committed to being in the movie, and then the movie never happens, right? So these are all stages. This is part of making the package attractive, right? So if you're a producer and you want to get another Lethal Weapon movie made, and you want to get a studio to greenlight it, then you go to them with as attractive of a package as you can. And you say, look, here's our script. We've got it done. Danny Glover, Mel Gibson are both committed to being in it. And the original director, Richard Donner, is committed to directing it. And now you've got a more attractive package. No studio, Warner Brothers or otherwise, has greenlit this thing, right? But there's several possibilities that can happen now. Now that they've put this package together, now that they got Donner attached, Gibson attached, Glover attached, got a script, all that kind of stuff that they can take and present, make a full presentation to studios. Now a couple things can happen. Warner Brothers could greenlight it and say, okay, but we're not going to spend any money on it. We'll give you like $20 million to make, or whatever. But Warner Brothers can greenlight it. Warner Brothers can also just say no. Warner Brothers could say, okay, tell you what, we're not interested in making this movie, but for X percentage of the profits of this thing, we will let you shop this movie to other studios. And then maybe you can go to other studios and shop it around. Anyway, the bottom line is, don't think for a second that just because Richard Donner has attached himself to it, that means, oh, it must be a go. No. It just means they're trying to make the package more attractive to try to get that green light. And maybe they will, maybe they won't. We'll have to see see what will happen here. Okay, next up, we've got ZOMG Ruler who writes, Happy New Year, Giovanni. Thank you so much, Richard. One criticism I have with Rotten Tomatoes is that it can be misleading, i.e. Incredible Hulk 67% and Thor The Dark World 66% are fresher than Man of Steel at 56%, Aquaman at 65%, and Wonder Woman 84, 61 or 63%. But the DC films had over 80 to 100 more critic reviews review them. All three DC films are better than Thor The Dark World, in my opinion. Well, that's the key right there, isn't it, ZMG Ruler? In your opinion. The Rotten Tomatoes thing can be misleading. Because what you're really saying is Rotten Tomatoes doesn't always line up with how I see things. That's what you're really saying. Because the Rotten Tomatoes results are not misleading. They just don't line up with the way I think it should be or the way you think it should be. But there are many people out there who would look at these ratings and say, yep, that's exactly how it should be. It's not misleading. Like, look, to me, let's just focus for a second on Man of Steel, shall we? Because you guys know I am totally a Man of Steel guy. Let's focus on Man of Steel for a second. Obviously, to me, it is one of the great unsolved mysteries of the universe why more audience members and more critics didn't love this movie. I mean, I don't get, listen, I understand all film is subjective. I get this and that, but there are certain movies that I go, look, I respect and understand that all film is subjective and you didn't like it. And I respect that, but I don't understand it because Man of Steel is awesome. And right now I'm getting people writing in that Man of Steel is terrible. Rotten Tomatoes is a brilliant, brilliant site. Because there's still a fundamental misunderstanding amongst a lot of film fans about what Rotten Tomatoes is. And I have no association with Rotten Tomatoes. As a matter of fact, I actively dislike a number of people that are in executive positions at Rotten Tomatoes. But that aside, Rotten Tomatoes is a brilliant thing, but there are fundamental misunderstandings. There are still a lot of film fans out there who think Rotten Tomatoes just give a movie a score. That's not what Rotten Tomatoes is. Rotten Tomatoes doesn't give any movies any scores. All Rotten Tomatoes does is they take all these reviews from hundreds of established outlet film critics, television personality critics, YouTuber critics, blogger critics, radio critic. They take hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. They just go out and they take all the film critic reviews for a movie. And then Rotten Tomatoes simply tells you how many of them liked the film versus how many of them didn't like the film. That's all Rotten Tomatoes does. It's an aggregate. Like, I hate Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten Tomatoes doesn't give any movie any score. Rotten Tomatoes didn't give Incredible Hulk a 67%. Rotten Tomatoes didn't give Man of Steel a 56%. All Rotten Tomatoes did was looked at all the critics and said, okay, 56, and then told us, all Rotten Tomatoes is doing is relaying information to us. That's all it's doing. And so Rotten Tomatoes says to us, the audience, we are going to relay to you this information. 56% of the critics liked Man of Steel, which by extension in mathematics means 46% or 44% of the critics did not. That's all Rotten Tomatoes does. It is simply conveying actual information. Now, how we interact with that information is up to the individual. I am obviously one of the 56% that believes Man of Steel was awesome. With Thor the Dark World, I don't think Thor the Dark World is terrible, by the way. Just throwing that out there. I don't think Thor the Dark World is terrible, but I happen to be one of the 34% of critics that didn't like Thor the Dark World. But it just is what it is. It is what it is. And so you got to understand, we can't say things like Rotten Tomatoes is misleading. No, it's not. Rotten Tomatoes is telling you the exact information. That's all it's doing. Now, whether or not on a case-by-case basis, it actually lines up with what I think, but what John Campea thinks even though this totally should be the standard by which the world runs. But as it turns out, what John Campea thinks is not the litmus test for what is misleading or what is not misleading. So no, these numbers aren't misleading. Those are the numbers. Whether we agree with them or not is separate, but just because they don't line up with our own personal opinions doesn't mean they're misleading. All Rotten Tomatoes does is give us the information. Here's the information, that's it. And that's all it is. And that's why I consider to be Rotten Tomatoes a really, really valuable tool, because it gives us insight into how are other people reacting to a movie. That's why I think Rotten Tomatoes is fantastic, and why I see it as a fabulous, fabulous tool. I love that Rotten Tomatoes is there. I don't love all the people that run Rotten Tomatoes, but I love it as a tool because it gives us as fans a bit of an insight into what other people think about certain things and how that lines up with what we think or how it doesn't line up with what we think. And I think all that is great information. I think that's all great fodder for conversation as well. So I think it's fantastic. I really do, but that's just me. I know it's the cool thing. It's the cool thing to hate on Rotten Tomatoes. I know it's the cool thing to hate on Rotten Tomatoes, but when you really just boil it down and understand what Rotten Tomatoes is and what Rotten Tomatoes does and how we are meant to interact with that information, it's really quite valuable. Even when you totally disagree with it, it's really quite valuable for the insights that it kind of gives us. But that's just my take on it. Again, I know I'm not one of the cool kids. I know it's the unpopular thing to say Rotten Tomatoes is a really valuable tool, but I really do. I consider it to be a really, really valuable tool. But that's just me. All right, thanks for that, ZMG Ruler. Appreciate that, man. All right, let's move on here. Next up, we've got, who do we have? We have Ahmed Z writes, do you really think Marvel Studios will bring back Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man? If they do, how do you think and when? Because personally, I thought it was dumb that he passed away at the end of Endgame, as he was my favorite character and he's integral to the MCU. Well, I mean, let's start with that point first. I think it is incredibly brave when storytellers are willing to kill off significant major characters, because it gives, like, I remember the first show that I watched. What was the first show? Let me ask you guys in the live chat. What's the first show you remember? What's the first show you remember where, you remember them killing off like a major character? Like what's the one to you that did that? I'm trying to think. Maybe Sopranos really did that. I think for me, Professor Xavier saying Game of Thrones has entered the chat. Like Game of Thrones, people saying Walking Dead, Sopranos, 24 season 1. Yeah, the end of season 1. Boardwalk Empire did it. MASH. MASH did it too. That was a little before my time of being a regular watcher. We got Buffy, Z Nation. The one that really made an impact to me was Sons of Anarchy. Sons of Anarchy was a huge one for me. Let me see if I can bring this up. Okay, so in Sons of Anarchy, my absolute 100% favorite character on Sons of Anarchy was Jax's best friend, Ope. Ope was my favorite character on this show. Oh my God, I love this show. Seriously, I freaking geek boner just thinking about this show. So awesome. Sons of Anarchy is such an awesome show. It's Shakespeare on motorcycles. It's so good. But Ope, my favorite character on the show, I remember when they killed Ope. And Opie, and I remember it fundamentally changed. And this happens as how I noticed it in other shows too, but this one really made an impact to me because when Opie died, to me, it fundamentally shifted how I then watched the rest of the show because I took no scene for granted after that. Even though they killed my favorite character, I didn't lose my love for the show. It actually intensified my love for the show. And I realize now in every time a character pulls out a gun, Like in most TV shows and movies, big deal. There's a gunfight. Pew, 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 pew. No one's going to die. I mean, pew, 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 pew. Just some random henchmen and Star Trek red shirters are going to fall and whatever, but nothing's going to happen. When Opie died, suddenly now every scene in Sons of Anarchy after that, where guns got drawn or there was a dangerous situation, I was literally on the edge of my seat because I had no idea what was going to happen. Because you're damn right, Bobby could die in this scene. Yes, Tiggy could die in this scene. Happy could die in this scene. Like, because once they broke that wall, you knew as an audience member, your favorite characters are not safe. And it just heightened that experience for me watching Sons of Anarchy. And the same is true for a lot of people in Game of Thrones, right? As right from season 1, they kill the main character of the show in season 1. In season 1, they kill what we all thought, other than the people who read the books, was the main character of Game of Thrones. Killed him. And then you realize in Game of Thrones, the big joke was, don't get too attached. Don't get too attached to any of these characters because any of them could die at any time, right? And so that to me, and that's why I respect when a show, movie, franchise, whatever, is willing to step up and say, hey, even Tony, like you can make an argument, the MCU for the first 10 years, up until the end of phase 4, the MCU has been about Steve Rogers and Tony Stark. It's really been about them. They've been at least the main characters in the arena. And for them to kill them off, I respect that. Even though I love Iron Man and I love the Tonys, I respect that. Here's the problem. The MCU undoes all of that tension all the time. In Sons of Anarchy, when Opie died, there was a permanence to that. You knew he wasn't coming back. Because in the Sons of Anarchy world, it's more of a grounded real world. When you die, they ain't coming back. And that's why you're so tense. With the MCU, it's not as much. Because as soon as they kill a character, you know probably in 3, 2, 1, and character comes back, right? So it removes some of that. As far as Tony goes, I have zero doubt that Robert Downey Jr. will be back. I have zero doubt about that. I'm not claiming insider information. I have none. I'm just saying, as a fan, I have zero doubt Robert Downey Jr. will be back. Maybe not this year, maybe not next year, maybe not in 3 years. Although there's a lot of things that he may pop up in Black Widow. He's probably going to pop up in Black Widow. I don't know that. I'm just saying that there's a lot of whispers going around that he pops up already in Black Widow, which is a prequel, so that's fine. Doesn't really count. But maybe not in 2 years, maybe not in 3 years. But yeah, I believe Robert will be back. How and when, who knows? We have no idea what state the MCU is in right now. Can't speculate on what might happen in a movie 4 years from now when we don't even really know what's going on in the MCU right now. But yeah, that's why I 100% believe that, yes, Robert Downey Jr. will be back. And I still miss Opie. All right, next up. Tristan Thorpe writes, I don't know why, but the idea of having 2 Batman franchises excites me. Even though I've been feeling a little fatigue on the character, but the possible idea of having one Batman be new to the vigilantism while the other is more experienced really intrigues me. Yeah, listen, it's all about, do you make a good movie? You know, we talked about that the other day as Walter Hamada was kind of suggesting we're going to be having 2 concurrent different Batmen running at the same time on the big screen in different movie franchises. Is it a good idea? Let's put it this way. If I was Walter Hamada, I probably wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do that. But at the end of the day, all that matters is, do you make a great movie? If they make if Matt Reeves does what we expect him to do and makes a terrific The Batman movie with Robert Pattinson, because that trailer looked awesome. If they make a terrific one, and if they do a good job, then in the rest of the DCU with whatever and whoever their Batman over there is going to be, no one's going to care that they're running 2 at the same time. But if one of them doesn't work, then nobody will want 2 different Batman running at the same time. It all comes down to, are the movies good? If they're good, you can get away with just about anything. Winning cures everything. I've said it for 12 years. Winning cures everything. It is even more valid in movies than it is in sports. You make a great movie, doesn't matter what, and that everybody loves, doesn't matter whatever else is going on, doesn't matter what behind the scenes drama is going on, doesn't matter what formula you use to make your film. If you make a movie that everybody loves, no one else is going to care about anything else. Winning cures everything. So I think it's a ballsy approach. Let's see if it works out or not. All right, thanks for that, Tristan. Next up, Boosters the Name writes, John, just wondering what you thought of the movie New Jack City. Wow, that's going back a ways with Wesley. New Jack City, loved it when I was growing up, but I noticed a lot of people in their 20s and younger who love gangster type movies, never heard of it. Everyone banged that Ice-T track back in school. Speaking of Ice-T, the movie in that era that I really loved was Colors. I don't know, I think Richard Duvall, was it Richard Duvall who was in that one? Colors was one because Ice-T had that track, right? Colors. Whatever. I loved Colors. Anyway. New Jack City was never one of my favorites. Let me bring up the IMDb page here of it here, because besides Wesley, okay, so this movie is going to be turning 30 years old, I think, this year. It came out in 91. It's going to be turning 30 years old. So besides Wesley Snipes and Ice-T, Chris, I totally forgot about Chris Rock, Mario Van Peebles was in there as well. Bill Cobbs, Judd Nelson, I forgot about Judd. Vanessa Williams was in there. I remember that. I'm gonna be honest with you. It was never one of my favorites. I remember liking New Jack City. I like New Jack City, but it never was, one of my big favorites. And probably one I haven't watched. Oh gosh. Probably one I haven't watched in, maybe since the year after it came out. I think the year it came out on VHS or DVD, whichever it was at the time. That was probably the last time I saw it, to be honest. It might be time for a revisit. But I just don't remember loving it all that much, just to be honest with you. But that's just me. All right, thanks for writing that in, Boosters the Name. All right, next up. Yash Rajput writes, 3 scenes from The Last Jedi that are among the best from Star Wars. Number 1, Luke's lesson. Number 2, scene when he criticizes the Jedi and how he became a legend. Luke's lesson to scene. To scene? I don't know what you mean by that. 2, Yoda explaining the true burden of all masters. I loved that scene. That scene with Yoda and Luke talking, I love that scene. Like, listen, I hate the Phantom Menace, right? But there are things in the Phantom Menace that I think are great. Even though I hate the movie, there are things in it that I think are great. Duel of the Fates, the Darth Maul, Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan lightsaber fight, the pod race. I think the pod race is fantastic. And I think, anyway, you'd explain that. 3, Luke's death with Binary Sunset is poetic, makes me emotional every time. Yeah, there was something about that. There was something about the death of Luke. Luke died representing the truest and most purest ideas and fundamental philosophies of the Jedi. He saved people without attacking anybody. I mean, it's really, there was something really beautiful and poetic about that. Because ultimately, remember, that's what the lesson of the Jedi is. The Force is to be used for knowledge and defense, never for attack. What Luke, the ending of The Last Jedi, the way Luke saves everybody was really a true, pure manifestation of that philosophy in its purest form. He saved everyone without killing anyone. It was the purest idea. Now, I personally prefer the Luke that comes in with lightsabers blaring and wrecking fools. That's the one I kind of wanted more. But it really was a beautiful, pure thing. And I have a number of issues with The Last Jedi, but there were a lot of things about it I also liked, and that was also one of the things that I quite enjoyed about it. Anyway, thanks for that, Yash. All right, next up, we've got, oh no, it's Josiah who writes, hold up. Am I the only one who noticed that you never see Mando's parents die? You know the rules, John. Over under 20%, one or both of Mando's parents come into play in the future. P.S. Love the show and have been watching since the closet days. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. First of all, you are absolutely right. You know the rules in movies and TV. If you don't see them die, they probably didn't die. I believe Mando's parents did die. And here's why I believe it. There were only moments that separate the way it was portrayed in season 1. There were only mere moments that passed between when his parents closed those storm shelter doors or whatever those were. You hear the boo boo boo, and then the door opens. The battle droid is there about to kill the kid, and then the Mandalorians show up and save him. There's only like mere moments that kind of separate those events, right? And understanding that the Mandalore took him because he was a foundling at that point, it would have violated their term of honor to just take him away from their parents if his parents were just hanging out there. And remember, they couldn't have gotten far if they weren't dead. So, is it possible? Well, hey, like you said, man, we never saw them die on screen. And if we don't see them die on screen, well, look, let's be honest with you. It's Star Wars. Even if we saw them die on screen, even if we saw Mando's parents getting decapitated, even if we saw that, it's possible they could come back anyway. But with us not seeing them actually die, yeah, it's possible they could come back, but I really don't expect that. My full assumption at this point, the way it was structured, was that we didn't need to see them die, that they are dead. So I will take under 20% that we see them come back. I will take under 20%. But again, it's not impossible. It's not impossible. All right, next up. Ethan writes and tips in $20. Thank you for supporting the channel on that level, Ethan, man. Appreciate that. Hey, John, love your show. Thank you so much. I've heard that they're making a Simpsons movie too, but do you think they will ever get a theatrical Futurama movie on the big screen? Please tell me your thoughts. Yeah, I think one of the things Matt Groening said was that he'll never do another Simpsons movie until they're done the Simpsons show. It was a couple of years after the first Simpsons movie came out. Then I remember hearing the runner of Simpsons say it was too hard. Making a feature film while they were also making the show, he said, I'll never do that again. Now, I don't know, maybe the folks at Disney at some point can change his mind or whatever, but I remember Matt Groening saying that specifically, that I will do another Simpsons movie, but not until Simpsons is done its television run. And then they'll do it. So whether maybe something has changed between now and then or whatever, and that's always possible. As far as Futurama goes, Justin McCullough just said something in the live chat that, no, not Justin McCullough, Angel just said in the live chat something that I was just about to say. Futurama simply is not popular enough to make a feature film. It's just not. I appreciate Futurama as much as most people do, but the reality is it never really found a huge audience on television. It always just kind of barely survived on TV. Zap Brannigan. Listen, you make a Zap Brannigan movie, I'm there. I am totally there all day, every day. I will count down the days to the release of that movie if you make a Zap Brannigan movie. But the reality is, I don't. Maybe a straight to Disney Plus special. Maybe that. But as far as a true proper feature film like Simpsons, the first Simpsons, yeah, I don't think so. I'm not saying it's not great, but it's just never had that popularity. So I don't see why there would be any real strong belief from them that it would work really well as far as getting financial results go. Anyway, thanks for writing that in, man. Okay, next up. Thank you again, Ethan. Next up, Mikhail May writes, a big director passed away here in France today, Robert Hossein. So I just want to share a quote from him today. Mankind lost hope little by little. So I just want to give just a little bit of hope with my movie. I love his movie, Les Miserables, 1982 version, R.I.P. I did not hear about this before, but what a great quote. Man, that's great. Mankind loses hope little by little. So I just want to give a little bit of hope with my movie. That's a beautiful philosophy. That is a beautiful philosophy. I love that. Oh, that's beautiful. I don't want to be disingenuous. I'm not really familiar with the work of Robert. If he's French, maybe it's Robert Hossein. I'm not familiar with his work, to be honest. Obviously, I'm very familiar with Les Mis. But that is sad to hear. But that is a great quote. Thank you for sharing that, Mikhail. Appreciate that. All right, next up. James McLeod writes, Kingdom was awesome. I assume we're meaning the MMA show. Only 3 seasons, and it's my top 10 TV shows. Do not be discouraged on the first few episodes. There is one episode that is extremely emotional. Haven't cried like that since Opie. Also, speaking of Opie, we were just talking about Opie. Also, have you watched Shameless? Love the show. I did watch. I tried watching season 1 of Shameless, and I'm not saying it's bad. Shameless, because it is very popular with a lot of people, Shameless just never clicked for me. It just never clicked for me. So while I watched the majority of season 1, I can't remember if I totally finished season 1 or not. And I love William H. Macy. But it just never clicked for me, so I never kept watching it. And I will add that to the growing list of recommendations, James. I've having more and more people recommending to me that I should watch Kingdom, not the Netflix Korean period piece zombie show Kingdom, which is really fun, but the MMA show. I will add that. I just might have to check this out. I've gone from having no interest to maybe I should check it out. Well, we'll see. Thanks for adding your recommendation to that, James. Next up, an anonymous viewer writes, Hey, John, hope you have a great new year. So far, so good, my friend. I'm just wondering, could someone else sue Warner Brothers, but go through with it? Also, if that happens and the DGA, SAG, and SWG, I'm not quite sure what the SWG is, decide to leave Warner's, could they crumble and sell their movie rights to other companies? Well, that's getting really far ahead of ourselves. Okay, let's start with the basic part here. The basis of this question from Anonymous is that Legendary Pictures, one of the companies behind things like The Dark Knight and many, many other big films, they are actually the ones who are the primary financiers. They're the ones who basically paid for Dune, for the upcoming Dune and the upcoming Godzilla vs. Kong. They paid 75%. That's a huge chunk of the production cost. Now, they have an agreement with Warner Brothers about what's supposed to happen with those movies, and to Legendary, Warner Brothers has violated that agreement by saying they're going to put it straight to HBO Max. So Legendary is gearing up to take Warner Brothers to court, and they'll win. They will win. I mean, it's in the contract. There's no getting around it. They'll win. But Warner Brothers, knowing that they would lose in court, have initiated discussions with Legendary to try to work out the deal. Now, the report that came from Deadline, it's a really interesting one. The report that came in from Deadline is saying that Legendary and Warner Brothers are already talking, and it looks like, nothing's official yet, but it looks like the agreement they're going to end up on is that Dune gets a proper exclusive theatrical release with a theatrical window and then go to HBO Max. And with Godzilla vs. Kong, they will allow Godzilla vs. Kong to do its release on HBO Max, but Warner Brothers is going to have to pay Legendary $250 million just to be able to take Godzilla vs. Kong and put it up on HBO Max. That's the report that came from Deadline. We haven't heard if the deal got finalized. I suspect, I don't know, but I suspect that that's exactly probably what it'll turn out. Dune will get its theatrical release, and it'll be, because here's the thing. They know if it goes straight to HBO Max, it makes no money. That's the thing, that's the big problem Legendary has with this. If it goes straight to HBO Max, it makes no money. And Legendary, part of the reason why they agreed to finance the film was they could get that money from the box office and have the potential of having a franchise. Denis Villeneuve, the director of the film, came out and said, if this thing gets released on HBO Max exclusively, it kills the idea of a franchise because it'll make no money. I mean, hell, Wonder Woman 84, a comic book film, just launched on HBO Max. They got enough new subscribers that equals $5 million in box office. Not 50, not 500, $5 million at box office. What do you think Dune's going to do on HBO Max? It's going to do nothing. So you're going to do nothing. It'll make a hell of a lot more money if you put it on screens first and then put it on HBO Max. There's no denying that. I mean, there's just however much money Dune will or will not make in the movie theaters, it will be infinitely more than if it just does an HBO Max exclusive release first. I mean, Wonder Woman just proved that. So that's what they're looking for. So I believe that is how it will think. Now, as far as how deep do we go down this rabbit hole? You know, what if can anybody else sue them? Anybody else can sue them if Warner Brothers has violated agreements. For example, Will Smith could sue them because he has it in his contract for King Richard that it was supposed to be a straight to theatrical event. So he could sue them unless they make a deal behind the scenes. Could the DGA, SAG, and I think by SWG, I think you meant I think you meant the WGA, the Writers Guild of America, not the SWG, the Writers Guild of America, the WGA, just so you know. Anyway, could they sue? Well, if they find that Warner Brothers making these moves has violated the contracts of certain writers, actors, or directors, then yeah, they could theoretically sue too, theoretically speaking. But I think a lot of this will be avoided. I think a lot of this will be avoided because Warner Brothers will want to avoid those lawsuits and they'll make behind the scenes deals. They'll make behind the scenes deals and a lot of that will be avoided. So I don't think we're going to hit a worst case scenario. All right. John, I know everything, writes one of two. Hey, John, big fan for about 2 years. I wanted to bring up a question. I don't know if it came to mind, but when you heard the news about Batman, which news about Batman? I'm a huge Bat fan and want DC to be successful. So we have rich stories and good movies for the audience. I deeply worry about divisiveness. Let's say both movies are good, but the iteration of Pattinson's Batman is much more powerful. Confusion such as having two QBs in a system, and we see in the NFL that never truly works out in the end. Hashtag Carson Wentz. Well, here's the thing though. Let's look, if you want to look at sport, it can work. It can work. All that matters is if you win, right? Look at the situation in Miami right now. The Miami Dolphins. They've got Tua and they got Fitzmagic. And they've kind of been going back and forth between them. And guess what? There's been discussion and people have talked about the fact they've got two quarterbacks who should truly be the starter. But you know what? Nobody cares because they're winning games. Nobody cares because they're winning games. Now, look, if they were doing the same thing, if they had Fitzmagic starting and then they had Tua starting and then they'd put in Tua and then pull him and put in Fitz halfway through the game and then they go back to Tua and all that kind of stuff. If they were doing that and losing games, everybody would call it a total hot mess. But they're doing that and winning games, and because they're winning, that's all anybody cares about. It's all anybody cares about. Winning cures everything. So do I have apprehensions and a little bit of nervousness and maybe even a little bit of skepticism about the notion of running two separate Batmen at the same time on the big screen? Yes, I do. I have some apprehension. I have a little bit of a skeptical look at it. I have a little bit of nervousness about it. Absolutely, I do. But winning cures everything. If they put out a bad Pattinson movie, then everybody will complain. Absolutely, they will. If they put out a bad other Batman thing, everybody will complain. But I am telling you, if they are both good and people like both movies, there will be some discussion and some debate about which one is better and all that kind of stuff. Yes, but at the end of the day, it won't matter because they're winning games. Winning cures everything. They put out a great Pattinson movie and everybody loves it. And then they put out another iteration of Batman on the big screen and everybody likes it. Everybody's going to be good. Nobody will care. Nobody will care. If they're not good, oh, you know there's going to be a lot of discussion about how they ruined it. And I'll be a part of that discussion. They ruined it by trying to run two different Batman at the same time. There will be those discussions, absolutely. But if they're good, those discussions will hardly happen. Because all anybody cares about is winning. And winning cures everything, my brother. Winning cures everything. All right, next up. Loverboy writes, After another divisive film in Wonder Woman 84, Cyborg and Amber Heard drama, MCU beating DC to the multiverse and announcing 4 films a year in 2022, is it time to reboot the DCEU with the Batman and use Flash as a swan song, or is it too late to do that? In my opinion, it's too late. Well, I mean, here's the thing. I was of the belief a long time ago that the MCU should have rebooted, or not the MCU, I'm sorry, that the DCEU should have rebooted a couple of years ago. But I always said that's not the only way to get things back on track. I just thought rebooting would be the cleanest way to get everything back on track, start with a clean slate. Even though I love Ben Affleck's Batman and I love Henry Cavill's Superman, it seemed to me a couple of years ago that the best way to get everything back on track, wipe the slate clean, bring in some new creative leads, and give them a fresh slate to start from with no baggage, with anything like that, and build a new universe. But they opted to go in another direction. And listen, their other direction has had a lot of success. Aquaman was a fun movie. Not everybody loved it, but it was a fun movie that most people liked. It made them $1 billion at the box office. Great. Then they decided to play around with the universe a little bit and try doing some elsewhere kind of stories. And they made Joker, won Academy Awards, made over $1 billion. Great. They put out Shazam, which wasn't a huge blockbuster hit at the box office. It made them a little bit of money, but it wasn't some huge blockbuster hit. But it was a fabulous, fun, entertaining movie. That's another win. Is Wonder Woman 84 a stumble? Well, a lot of people love Wonder Woman 84, but a lot of people didn't, and unfortunately, I didn't really like it all that much either. So yeah, Wonder Woman 84 is a stumble. Birds of Prey, to me, is a stumble. That one didn't work to me. But again, in the Walter Hamada era, they have more wins than losses. You can't say that before the Walter Hamada era. Like every movie that had come out before the Walter Hamada era was a mixed bag of half the audience is hating it, half the critics hating it, the movie's underperforming financially, blah, blah, blah. Other than the first Wonder Woman movie, you come into the Walter Hamada era and suddenly you got a bunch of wins. Couple of losses, but a bunch of wins too. Nobody care. At the end of the day, history will not care about the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard thing. History won't care. At the end of the day, history won't care about the Ray Fisher stuff. No, the history won't care. At the end of the day, Wonder Woman not being the best movie, Wonder Woman 84 being the best movie in the world, history won't care. It won't matter. So I don't think now is the time to reboot. No. I don't think now is the time to reboot. I think they seem to have a plan right now with what they want to do. They seem to have a plan with what they want to do. They're doing a fairly good job, not without some stumbles, but hey, look, the DCEU was a rough situation to start with, so it's not surprising that they're still having some stumbles, but they've also put together some really good wins, and now's not the time to reboot. Now look, if they do the Pattinson movie and it doesn't work, either it underperforms financially, the audience doesn't really embrace it, the critics don't really embrace it, or whatever. You put out this Flash movie, if that ever gets made, and it underperforms and doesn't do very well and all that kind of stuff. You do that, and maybe it's time to revisit the idea of fresh slate again and rebooting. But right now, I don't think right now is the time to do that. I think they got too many good things going right now. I think right now they have too many good things going. So, yeah, so we'll see. We'll see how that all goes. All right, next up. NPE94 writes, I understand some people are excited for the Snyder Cut, but I am thrilled that we are moving on with Matt Reeves. I disagree with Rob on this issue. The future success of DC is dependent on the Batman not reviving the Snyderverse. I 100% agree. No, I 100% agree. Look, here's the bottom line of this. And this is the part that everybody misses, or that a lot of people miss. You cannot rewrite history. The DCEU, while under Zack Snyder, was not working. Now, I say that as somebody who considers Man of Steel to be the most underrated comic book film of all time, one of the greatest comic book movies ever made. I say that as somebody who is a fan of Batman versus Superman. You saw me review it. I really like the film. I like Batman versus Superman. Not perfect, but I like Batman versus Superman. Look, so this is all coming, and I had fun with Suicide Squad. I know Suicide Squad is a hot mess of a movie. I know that. But I liked Suicide Squad. At the end of the day, I had fun. So, for any of you who want to crap on me for like, but whatever. But the reality is that and everybody wants to pretend like it never happened. Under Zack Snyder, the reality is, despite how much I love Man of Steel and all that kind of stuff, the reality is Man of Steel underperformed. Half the critics hated it, and half the audience hated it. I can never talk about how great I think Man of Steel is without getting my various message outlets being flooded by people saying, what are you talking about? Campea, Man of Steel sucks. And that's fine. It's all subjective. I don't need other people to like Man of Steel for me to love Man of Steel. That's a problem with a lot of film fans today. A lot of film fans today need other people to feel the same way they do so they can feel justified in their opinion. I don't need other people to like Man of Steel for me to love Man of Steel. So that's fine. But again, the reality is a lot of people are putting on some very, very rose-colored glasses and remembering things the way they were not. The DCEU was not a well-oiled machine that was hitting success after success after success when Zack Snyder was still there. It was for me personally, but not overall. That's just the truth. That's just the truth. And so this notion that Zack Snyder now doing something I'm looking forward to seeing, Zack Snyder finally being able to take his original vision, sort of, he's changed a bunch of things, but whatever, his quote unquote original vision, and bring it to this miniseries. I'm looking forward to seeing it. Sure. But don't misunderstand what this is. This is HBO and Warner Brothers using Zack Snyder. And this is HBO and Warner Brothers using the Snyder Cut fan base community to try to pimp out and get some more HBO Max subscribers. That's all. They're just using them. And hey, that's fine. Zack gets to complete his movie, and the people who've been really wanting to see the Snyderverse cut are going to get to see it. So everybody wins. Everybody wins. I said from day one, once HBO Max became a thing, I started saying, you can go back. This is well documented. Go back and watch. I'm like, yeah, release the Snyder Cut. I mean, there's no finished movie doesn't exist right now, but take whatever it is and put it up on HBO. It's a good move. It'll get some new subscribers for HBO Max, and it makes a bunch of people happy. It's great. But Warner Brothers has no deeper plans beyond that for the Snyderverse. They don't. They don't, like, even the New York Times article the other day was pointing out that they're going to move forward with Batman, but it's not the Ben Affleck Batman. Or at least it's not going to be Ben Affleck. And it pointed out that there are no future plans for any more Snyder stuff going forward with the DCEU. But everybody seems to want to hold on to this fantasy that the DCEU was great and it was successful and everybody loved the DCEU when it was under Zack Snyder. It wasn't. It didn't work. And that's why a lot of Warner Brothers people, put out the Snyder Cut, put on HBO Max, get some attention to HBO Max. Big win. But they don't have any other future plans beyond that. So, I mean, I don't know. It's an interesting situation. Now, then the theoretical question always gets brought up. But what if... Everybody loves what if questions. But what if Snyder Cut is a big, huge, massive hit that everybody loves and all the audience loves and all the critics love and like 5 million new people sign up for HBO Max, on the weekend that it comes out and all this kind of, okay, yeah. I mean, that changes things, right? Winning cures everything. You have that level of success, that can change things for sure. But the question then becomes for me is there any rational basis to believe that'll happen? Is there any rational basis to believe that magically people who have already seen a few Zack Snyder films in the DCEU and didn't like it are magically going to like Zack Snyder's vision of the DCEU the way I like it and the way maybe some of you like it? That's not rational. That's not reasonable to assume that. Is there a reasonable basis to believe that, besides the audience, the critics, that half the critics who have seen Zack Snyder's DCEU interpretation in a couple of films and didn't like it, that they're magically going to like Zack Snyder's interpretation of the DCEU when he does this? I don't think it's rational to believe that. Possible? Absolutely. Likely? I don't think so. So I don't know. All I care about right now, as far as it comes to Justice League, the miniseries, all I care about is if I like it. I'm not expecting I'll love it the same way I loved that I love Man of Steel. I'm just hoping that I like it the same way I like Batman versus Superman. If you can put out this Justice League cut and I enjoy it as much as I like Batman versus Superman, I'll personally consider that a big win. I'll consider it a big win. So we'll see. We'll see. All right. Anyway, thanks for that, NPE. All right, next up. John, I know everything writes. 1 or 2. Hey, John, I know you hate these types of rumors, but I know someone in the business that has it on some authority, so you know somebody that knows somebody. I know somebody that has some of that. Chris Pine is now pushing for his role, Chris Pine is pushing for his role in Wonder Woman 3. I agree as a film aficionado with you and Rob about all the negatives was in Wonder Woman 3, but I love the DCEU. We keep seeing back and forth from the damn executives. I fear as a big DC fan that we will never be on the same page in the cinematic comic book war. Over under 60% that this somehow happens, and will DC ever make sense? And will DC ever make any sense? Well, if what you're asking what will happen, will Chris Pine be back in Wonder Woman 3? I believe he will be. Because Chris Pine is the main reason both Wonder Women, especially the first one, Chris Pine's the main reason the first Wonder Woman movie worked. I mean, other than Patty Jenkins as the director, that the director is always the primary reason. But listen, Gal Gadot isn't the strongest actress in the world. To do most of the real emotional, best acting, heavy lifting, and to bring Gal Gadot along with it, you needed Chris Pine. Chris Pine was the heart of that film. He made that film work from a performance point of view. Now, Gal Gadot has continued to improve, and she continues to get better. Give full credit where it's due. She continues to get better. And I believe the Gal Gadot actress we saw in Wonder Woman 84 was a better actress than the one we got even in the first Wonder Woman movie. And I think she's going to continue to get better. But she's still not super strong. The best scenes in Wonder Woman 84 were the ones when it was Chris Pine with Gal Gadot. Chris Pine makes those scenes work. And even though they're going to have to come up with something ridiculous to bring him back yet again in Wonder Woman 3, I really think they need to bring Chris Pine back for Wonder Woman 3. And I think that's their plan to do so. Patty Jenkins loves working with Chris Pine. She's working with him on another project already. So I will take over 60%, not 90%, not 80%, but I will take over 60% that he'll be back. There's still a strong possibility, and maybe they shouldn't bring him back, but I still believe there's a good solid possibility he won't be back. But if you're going to set the line at 60%, I'll take the over on that. All right. Brennan writes, I think perhaps one of the contributing reasons Disney Plus outperformed HBO Max is because parents are not buying HBO Max for their kids for Christmas, but might be getting Disney Plus for them. Oh, there's no doubt about that, Brennan. No doubt about that. Like, yeah, for parents thinking about what's great for the family, Disney Plus is clearly the superior option for people in that situation than, say, HBO Max is. Now, for somebody like me who, I don't have a bunch of kidlets running around, right now, this moment, as of January 1st, 2021, if I had to only pick between having HBO Max or Disney Plus, I'm taking HBO Max. I just would. Now, ask me that question again at the end of 2021, when we've had Falcon and Winter Soldier. and we've had the Book of Boba Fett, and we've had WandaVision, and all. Ask me then, I may change my answer. I may change my answer, but for people in that particular context, Brendan, I have zero doubt you're right. That is definitely one of the contributing factors. Absolutely is 100%. All right, next up, Alan Dale writes, in the UK, we have prime free-to-air channels like BBC, ITV, Channel 4, etc. And regularly through the year, they show MCU and Star Wars movies. With streaming becoming more popular now, how do you think the next 5 years, the only place to watch Disney is on Disney+? Yeah, probably. I think that is what Disney is moving towards. Look, we are still in an era where content creators are licensing out their content because they make a lot of money by licensing it out to streaming networks, traditional cable networks, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of money to be made. But I believe the end game for something like Disney Plus or HBO or Paramount Plus, whatever, I think the long-term end game is Disney creates its content, maybe it gets a theatrical release, whatever, and then the only place you can watch that content later on or right away is on Disney Plus. I believe that day is coming. I don't know if that'll all happen in the next year. I don't know if that'll all happen in the next 2 years, but that is the end game. That at some point, when Avengers 6 comes out, after it's done its theatrical run, if theaters are still a thing by the time Avengers 6 comes out, let alone Avengers 5, I believe Disney's goal is then the only place then you can then watch it, if you want to watch it, is Disney Plus. I think that's the goal, and I do think that's the transition that's happening, Alan. Good question. Next up, Ryan Lohner writes, New Year's Eve birthdays, Noelle Stevenson, 29, Ricky Whittle, 39, Nicholas Sparks, 55. Oh, he's 55. Val Kilmer, 61. Tim Matheson, you can be my wingman anytime. Tim Matheson, 73. Taylor Hackford, 76. Sir Ben Kingsley, 77. And Anthony Hopkins, 83. The two sirs with very, very different things. I've told you this story before, but Ben Kingsley is, I don't know if he is anymore. First of all, world-class actor. Love Ben Kingsley. But apparently, Ben Kingsley was, maybe he's not anymore, but for a while, he was a very big stickler about you using his proper terminology when referring to him as Sir Ben, because he was knighted. And that meant a lot to him, and he takes that very seriously. And so there have been, I've talked to people who've interviewed where he's corrected people. Mr. Kingsley, Sir Ben Kingsley. They've corrected people. Anthony Hopkins, on the other hand, just doesn't care. I'm not saying he doesn't consider it an honor, but when I was going in to meet Anthony Hopkins for the first time, I grabbed his publicist first before I went into the room where he was waiting for me, and I asked his publicist, said, "By the way, Anthony's thing. Does Mr. Hopkins prefer to be addressed as Sir Anthony or Mr. Hopkins, or how does he prefer?" And the publicist looked at me and said, "You know what? Actually, that's never come up." So I go into the room. They open the door. They let me into the room. Hopkins stands up from his chair, comes over to shake my hand. And I decided to play it safe. And I say, they say, this is John. I was working with AMC at the time, and they said, this is John Campea from AMC. And I said, he stands up. He says, "Pleasure to meet you." And I decide to play it safe, and I say, Sir Anthony, it's truly an honor to meet you. And it was. Meeting Anthony Hopkins was huge. And Sir Anthony, it's totally an honor to meet you. And he laughs and he goes, "Sir Anthony." And as he shakes my hand, you may have heard the story, as he shakes my hand, he's got these, by the way, Anthony Hopkins, massive hands. Anyway, he shakes my hand as I say, "Sir Anthony, it's a pleasure to meet you." He goes, "Sir Anthony, oh, you're a dear boy." And he pulls me in and gives me a hug for calling him sir. So clearly he didn't care. But that's the difference, right? You got one actor in Ben Kingsley who apparently takes it very, very seriously. And then you get somebody like Anthony Hopkins who just didn't seem to care about it at all. Anyway, there's that. Okay, next up. Comics Are Fun writes, "Hey, John. Did you see Universal Studios signed on to produce future Lego movies?" Yeah, that was a while ago they did that. "And projects. Warner Brothers deal ran out and Universal stepped in. Why would Warner Brothers let that franchise go?" Well, I'll tell you why they let it go. I will tell you exactly why they let that go. Let me bring up the thing here again. Listen, the first Lego movie, the first Lego movie was a movie that was supposed to suck. I mean, come on. It's a movie about plastic building blocks, right? It's a movie about plastic building blocks. Okay, so let's go Lego movie box office. So the first Lego movie makes, so they say first movie makes, I think it's like 465 million. I think that's what it was. Let me go over and double check that. 468 million. Makes $468 million. Okay. A movie about plastic building blocks, right? So Lego Batman, though. By the way, and the Lego Batman movie was awesome. Let's go Lego Batman movie. It was awesome, but it took a big dip and it made 312 million, right? 312 million. Then Ninjago, the next Lego movie was Ninjago, and it dropped even more. So Ninjago, it dropped even more, and it made 123 million. Now these are worldwide numbers. These were worldwide numbers. So they come out of the gate with the first Lego movie. And then, by the way, and then Lego 2, it did better than Ninjago. I think Lego 2 made better than Ninjago. Hold on a second. Lego Movie 2 box office. Lego, the next piece. Yeah, it made more than Ninjago, but it only made 193 million, right? So look at that. Look at the difference between the first Lego movie making $468 million, and then we get to the Lego 2, the second piece, and it makes less than half. Less than half. And it, by the way, Lego Movie 2 wasn't very good. Lego Movie 2 wasn't very good. So let's look at this. If you're Warner Brothers, and okay, you came out of the great gate strong. The first Lego movie was amazing. Loved it. It's fantastic. I love that Lego movie. Everything is awesome. Anyway, that movie's great. I love that movie. Makes 468 million. Fantastic. But now you're Warner Brothers and you decide, you know what? Everybody loved the Batman character in that. What's the name of the guy from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles who did the voice of Batman in it? He was married to Amy Poehler for a while. If you guys in the live chat, you remember what's the name of the guy who does the voice? He was married to Amy Poehler. Anyway, so they go, you know what? Will Arnett. Thank you, Zach and Gil. Will Arnett. That Batman character in Lego was awesome. That Batman character was absolutely awesome. So they decide, let's do a spin-off. Everybody loves Batman. So let's do a spin-off with a Lego Batman movie. And guess what? That movie is fantastic. That Lego movie is fantastic. By the way, Chicagoland just sent in a $50 tip on the super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, dude. Thank you so much for supporting us on that level, man. That's really generous. Thank you, man. I very, very much appreciate it. And they make this Lego Batman movie, and it's fantastic. I'm actually hard pressed to tell you if I think the Lego movie or if the Lego Batman movie is better. Like, that's how good I thought the Lego Batman movie was. It was amazing. I thoroughly love that movie. So they make a great movie following up on a hit movie, and it drops like 30%. It only makes 312 million. It should have made more. That was a really good movie. And people responded to the first Lego movie great. They put out Lego 2 or Lego Batman movie, and it only made 312. Okay, fine. Then they take a popular IP of theirs, Ninjago. And granted, Ninjago was never going to make as much as a Lego Batman movie was, but it has its followers and its fans. And to be fair, while I didn't think Ninjago was as good as the Lego Batman movie, Ninjago was pretty fun. I liked it. I was pretty skeptical going into Ninjago, but Ninjago was pretty fun. And it only made $123 million. They lost money on that movie. Okay, says Warner Brothers. then we'll get back to the main franchise. Let's get Chris Pratt back, Elizabeth Banks back. Let's get all the main voices back. Let's get back and do a proper Lego movie 2. And while it did better than Ninjago, it just continued to descend, made less than half of the first one did. So when we're going to ask the question, why would Warner Brothers let the rights to, why would they not want to re-up and pay up to continue to have the rights to Lego movie? This is why. The Lego movie was losing, the Lego franchise was losing them money. And why, if you're in business, why would you continue to hold on to a property that's losing you money? So yeah, at the end of the day, so Universal believes, you know what? We think done the right way, the Lego franchise can make a return and can do well. So they decided to take a shot at it. And maybe, I hope all the success in the world to them. Maybe they can make it work where Warner Brothers didn't. Maybe they can't. But if you're Warner Brothers, it's actually not a hard decision. You look at the results those films are getting. Why would you hold on to it? Why would you continue to pay licensing rights to hold on to it? You gave it a shot. You had one big success, and then everything else was like, psh. Even when you made good movies, they didn't work out. So that's why comics are fun. That's why. All right. Thanks for asking, man. Mark 2020 writes, "Hey, John, longtime viewer and first time writing in. Thank you so much, Marco. Good to have you here. But one thing that has always bothered me, slight nitpick, but in the Star Wars original trilogy, why does Vader not acknowledge or recognize C-3PO or R2-D2? After all, didn't he build C-3PO and R2 was with him most times?" Listen, Mark, you are bringing up an issue that has been talked about, discussed, theorized about a billion times since the prequels came out. Now, remember, the fault of this does not lie with the original trilogy. The original trilogy was made long before the prequels were made, right? Them deciding later on, one of the many stupid decisions George Lucas made when he made the prequels was, let's make it so Anakin built C-3PO. Why? Is the universe that small? We got to say that Anakin built, and remember, there are things about The Force Awakens that the Phantom Menace. There are things about the Phantom Menace that I truly, truly do enjoy, but that is also, the prequels are riddled with so many mind-numbingly stupid decisions. One of which is, of course, we're going to have it so Anakin built C-3PO. That makes no sense. That makes no sense. It just does not fit in. And, the thing with R2, that makes no sense. And then they tried at the end of the prequels, to have, for out of nowhere, we have Bail Organa. Oh, and by the way, wipe that droid's memory. What? Why that one? And not anyway. But then we get into the movie. Why did Vader not? This again? You are bringing up a very good question, Mark, but it's just one that I can't give you an answer to, because just keep in mind, the fault does not lie with the original trilogy. The original trilogy made their movies without contradiction. It wasn't until later movies came out that they do all this kind of stuff. So yeah, because otherwise it makes no sense that Vader, a guy who built that thing, who built C-3PO, was with him for a period of time in his young life and was the one thing he left behind to his mother to protect, and then came back and visited again as he was older, talked to 3PO a little bit later when he's older, came back in the second movie, recognized 3PO, all that kind of stuff, and was the last thing he left to his mom before leaving to start his Jedi training. It makes no sense he didn't recognize or know him. I don't know. But again, Marco, much smarter people than you and I have had these discussions about this ever since The Phantom Menace came out. These are all discussions we've had ever since The Phantom Menace came out. All right, next up. Preston the Kryptonian writes, 1 of 5. All right, here we go. Buckle in. Hey, John. I'm a little late to the conversation, but I wanted to put in my 2 cents about Wonder Woman 1984. First off, I love the movie. That's awesome. I wish I did. I'm glad you did, though, man. I'm glad you had a good time with it. First of all, I love the movie. Although it was flawed, I would have to say that it was the best movie of 2020 that I have seen. It's quite different and still flawed, just like any other movie. I just don't quite understand the hate. The movie had a lot going for it. Originality, good characters, compelling story, great Hans Zimmer soundtrack, including that insert of Beautiful Lie from Batman vs. Superman, a good moral, even though it may have screwed up the DCU timeline. My next point is that I disagree with you and Rob about what y'all said about there not being a point. Well, there is a point. At the end of the movie, we learned that what we wish for isn't always what we need now, and it can corrupt us. This is why that first scene with Diana as a child showed us that taking shortcuts won't truly get us ahead in life. It actually spoke to me, and I understand it doesn't speak to everyone. Anyway, sorry for the long post, and hope you and Ann have a terrific new year. Congrats on the new house. All right, thanks for saying that in, Preston. And again, I love that you loved it. That is great. I mean, I want everybody to love the movies they watch, even the movies I don't like. You know? Like, I hate the prequels, but I love that there are people who love the prequels. That's great. It doesn't change my mind that I didn't like them, but I'm glad that they like them. I didn't like Wonder Woman 84. And unfortunately, I have to disagree with you that it was very original or that it had very good characters or that it had a very good story. I disagree with you on that. But that's how it hit you, and that's all that matters, man. It's all subjective. You had one experience with it. I had another experience with it. So it's all good. I'm glad that you loved it. Now, getting back, though, to what was the point of the movie? Every movie has a moral of the story, right? Every movie has one, at least they should, but pretty much every movie has a moral of the story. With Wonder Woman, yes, the moral of the story, which is introduced in the very first scene on Themyscira, which, by the way, I love the scene on Themyscira. At the beginning of the movie with little young Diana, I love that scene. I think that scene's great. I wish the movie was more of that. But that is indeed the moral of the story. But the question Rob and I had was, what was the purpose of this film? When you're making your next chapter installment of a running franchise, what was the purpose? What was the function within the terms of the franchise of this particular movie? And at the end of the day, I haven't heard anybody really come up with one. Let's look at The Dark Knight, for example, right? The Dark Knight, second film in Nolan's trilogy of films. You could sit there and list down a laundry list of the function that that one movie played within the overall franchise, right? It moved these characters from the first one into this one. It sets up this that will translate into the second one, and it established Batman as this and that world and all that kind of stuff. But when you sit down and look at Wonder Woman 84, I've yet to hear anybody really come up with what was the role of this film? What was this movie meant to accomplish? What did it accomplish? Like the original Wonder Woman movie, which besides being a great film, it established the point of that movie. It established Diana. Where did she come from? Who is she? How did she get into this place in this world? And how does she end up in the place that we find her in at the beginning of Batman versus Superman when Bruce Wayne is doing his digging into her? That Wonder Woman movie accomplished a lot of things and had several levels of purpose within the structure of the DCEU as a whole. I can't find what the purpose was of Wonder Woman 84. Now, I agree. The moral of the story was a great moral of the story. The moral of the story is what you wish for is really not always what you need. I mean, Aladdin had that same one. It's a good moral of the story. But what Rob and I were talking about wasn't that. We weren't talking, did this movie have a good moral of the story? We were talking about what was the overall functioning purpose of this film within the context of its own franchise and within the context of the DCU as a whole. And that's the one that I haven't found one yet. And by the way, it could have been a great movie and still failed to have its own overall purpose. I'm not saying I didn't like the movie because I can't identify what the overall purpose of the film was. It's just that for me personally, it failed on both those notes. I found it not to be a very good film with some good elements, and also failed to have an overall purpose, or being able to define an overall purpose within the franchise. So that's just me. But again, that's just my subjective opinion. The fact is, you enjoyed it. That's all that mattered. Don't allow me to yuck on your yum, man. If you enjoyed it, you enjoy it and you watch it more. And I'm glad that you enjoyed it. All right, Preston, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. All right, let's keep going here. Next up, we've got Casey McNatt, who writes, "Hey, John, I know it doesn't count, but I feel like we got our good comic book fix in the form of TV this year. We really did. We really did. We got Doom Patrol, Umbrella Academy, and The Boys. And I feel all of those were better than all the comic book films we've got in 2020. Absolutely. We got absolutely fantastic comic book material in 2020. With particularly, if you just want to focus on those three, Umbrella Academy crushed it. Doom Patrol crushed it. The Boys crushed it. And yes, when you look at the four major traditional comic book films that came out in 2020, Bloodshot, Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey, Wonder Woman 1984, and New Mutants. Every single one of those three TV shows, Doom Patrol, Umbrella Academy, The Boys, all three of those TV shows, in my opinion, in my subjective opinion, was better than any of the four comic book movies that came out this year. So yes, for those of us who were really looking forward to comic book material in 2020, television, the TV streaming shows saved it for us. It saved it for us. Now, that's not like New Mutants has its upsides. Bloodshot, I don't know. I'm one of the world's biggest Vin Diesel fans, and even I have a hard time coming up with some of the upsides for Bloodshot. Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey, I didn't like the movie, but it had its upsides. Wonder Woman 84, overall, I was disappointed with the movie, but I do believe it had its upsides. But yeah, man, the TV this year, particularly those three shows, The Boys, Doom Patrol, and Umbrella Academy. God, I love those shows. Those shows are so great. Anyway, thanks for sharing that with me, man. I completely agree with you, brother. All right. Who's next? Michael H. Jones writes, tips in $20. Thank you, Michael, for supporting the channel on that level, man. Writes, hey, John, I really liked your documentary. Thank you so much. You know what? I'll plug. I'll use this opportunity. You guys knew it was coming. I'll use this opportunity to plug the movie. So you guys, most of you know, I made the past year, I've worked on a documentary about movie trailers, the history of them, and the role they play in the overall fandom. And that movie is now out and available as we speak, wherever you live on the planet. Whatever country you live in, you can go and watch it right now internationally at vimeo.com/on-demand/movie trailers. But if you happen to live in the US or the UK, you have another option of watching it. You can also watch it on Amazon. And just go to Amazon if you're in the US or the UK, search for Movie Trailers: A Love Story, and you have the option of watching it there as well. And a very big, deep thank you to all of you guys who have checked it out already and left all the positive feedback, and it's been great. I love that. So anyway, thank you, Michael H. Jones, for checking out my documentary and giving me an excuse to plug my movie. Okay, let's keep going on here. My favorite part was the trailers that gave away too much. Also, saw Tom Hanks' new movie, News of the World, at the theater. I really liked it. I cannot wait to watch that. And obviously my wife, who is a Tom Hanks fanatic, cannot wait to watch that. So what Michael is talking about is the documentary Movie Trailers: A Love Story is broken into chapters, and there are 12 chapters. One chapter, or there are 3 chapters in particular. 9 chapters are basically talking about trailers, how great they are, the big influences they've had, the history of them. There are 3 chapters that run back to back that kind of look at the problems with movie trailers. And one of those chapters was giving away too much. And we have an entire chapter about it. And we even talked to one of the most celebrated and longest running trailer companies in the world, in Hollywood, and their presidents talking about the giving away too much and stuff like that. It's a really fun chapter in it as well. Anyway, Michael, thank you so much for checking that out. And I'm glad you enjoyed the movie, man. And a special thank you to Leandro, who just sent in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thanks for that, Leandro. Appreciate that. Okay, let's move on here. We got time for a few more, even though we've already gone over time. Casey McNatt writes, hey, John, here's the thing I don't get. When the wish stone is able to grant one wish to somebody, why did Cheetah get 2? When Maxwell Lord tries to get somebody to wish for something, the guy already made a wish with him and he couldn't do it again. Yet, with Cheetah, he was able to grant her a second wish. Why is that if he became the original wish stone and Cheetah already got her one wish on that stone? That is another big loophole. Why was he suddenly magically able to give somebody a second wish when he couldn't give other people a second wish. Remember, he wanted to find somebody who goes, don't you wish I could get to the White House right now? Yeah, of course I do. You've already made a wish, didn't you? Yeah, crap. And he had to run around and try to find somebody who hadn't made another wish yet. But then suddenly they're in the helicopter and goes, whatever, Cheetah. I'm feeling generous. You got another wish for me? How come he couldn't do that 10 minutes ago, but all of a sudden he could magically do it now? I mean, Casey, I don't have an answer for you because that's another logic problem. That is another logic problem with the movie. That has no reconciliation. There's no reconciliation to that problem. Fan of Peanuts sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Fan of Peanuts. Appreciate that. Made no sense. Makes no sense. Why on earth did he desperately have to run around and lose time and try to desperately find somebody that hadn't made a wish yet so he could grant them another wish? Of course, it was a wish that he wanted, but still grant them another wish. But with Barbara in the helicopter, hey, what do you really want? Well, I don't want just what I already have. Now I want this too. I'm feeling generous. I'm feeling generous. But what? You couldn't do it. Anyway, yes, there's that. All right. Where are we at now? That was Casey. Next up, Ryan Holman writes, hindsight is 2020, and 2020 is almost in our hindsight. Well, it is now today. Thanks for your show, John. It's been one of the only good things about this year. Looking forward to more. Thank you so much. And by the way, guys, let me throw this out there. Let me take, and we'll wrap up on this. And then Quintus, Deschun, and the Sock, and Jay Palms. I'm going to do a companion video a little bit later today. I'm going out of town, but I'll do it from the road. I'm going to do a companion video later today. And so I'm going to get to your questions starting there and on up a little bit later today with a companion video going up. Keep your eyes open for that. But, Rylan gives me a great point here where I can sign off today with 2020 is almost over in hindsight. Thank you for your show, John. It's been one of the only good things about this year. Looking forward to more. Thank you so much. And Leandro again sends in another super chat badge. Thank you for that, Leandro, saying next time in the live chat. Appreciate that. Let me address this for a second. Let me step away from the movies for a second. Let me get behind the scenes a little bit here. And if you guys will indulge me for just a minute, let me say a couple things about 2020. 2020 was it's a brutal year. There's no way around it. I mean, we talk in our show about our little box of the movie and entertainment world, yes, but I mean, for the whole world, it was a mess, and specifically for our entertainment world. 2020 also marked the end of my third full year. I've been doing it for more than 3 years, but it marked the end of my third full year since I decided to leave my corporate job and leave the situation I was in and go off on my own with nobody else writing me a paycheck and do my own thing on YouTube. And I didn't care. I wanted a place where I didn't have to care about corporate pressures and I didn't care about building something for other people. Listen, whenever I think about it, it does hurt my ass that I spent so many years of my life building something like I did with Movie Talk and everything. But ultimately it belonged to somebody else, even though I'm the one who made it. And I decided no more. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to make things that belong to other people. I'm not going to pour my blood, sweat, and tears into things that somebody else owns. And I wasn't going to do that anymore. And I wanted to leave. And I didn't want to care about I wanted to do a channel. I wanted to do something where I didn't care if a lot of people watched it or not. I just wanted to make a channel where I made things about things that interested me. And I didn't have to care about answering to a boss about whether we got big views on it or not. I didn't have to care about whether I did a lot of reaction videos, because I know reaction videos get a lot of likes, and I love a lot of reactors out there. It's just that that's not my thing. I don't do reactions. I certainly don't do them well. And so do reactions or have to make a whole bunch of hate videos where you put the big googly eyes. Have you guys seen, everybody does this stupid freaking fourth grade bullshit now where everybody puts on these things or it's like they put on their thumbnail, somebody they don't like in the movie industry and they either put the big googly eyes on them or they put the red devil eyes on them. Ooh, isn't that creative? Anyway, everybody does it now. I'm not pointing at any one person because everybody seems to do that now. I wanted to have a channel where I didn't have to care about how many people watch that would pressure me into making like tons of reaction stuff or making a lot of hate stuff or making a lot. What I didn't want to do that. I want to do my own thing where I didn't have to care how many people watched it. I just wanted to have a nice little community where we could do things and maybe, earn a living doing it. And you guys made that possible. You guys never pressured me to make the types of videos that a lot of other people make, and a lot of other people make very, very well. But you guys never pressured me to make any types of videos that weren't videos that I just naturally didn't want to do. And you've never pressured me. You've never made demands of me or the shows that I do. All you've asked of me was to do my best and give you my best effort. And that's what I endeavor and try to do every day. Do my best, give you my honest opinion when it's popular and when it's not popular. Be honest with you and make the type of content that I would want to watch and just do it to the best of my ability and always give you my full effort. In 2020, that became very problematic. Because look, the reality is this. This is a channel that is primarily based on topics of discussion of movie news of the day. And in 2020, we had no movies. We had some movies, but for the most part, generally speaking, we had no movies. We had none. How is a channel like mine that primarily focuses on that sort of thing supposed to survive in a year when there are no movies, right? And there was even a point back in June where I was like, guys, I need to take a couple of weeks off to kind of evaluate things. I was getting really exhausted because I was still in the midst of trying to make my documentary. I work very long hours and I was getting fatigued. I was getting burned out. I needed to take a break. But on top of that, there wasn't a lot to talk about. It felt like there really wasn't a lot to talk about. So you guys remember that back in June, I took like 2.5, almost 3 weeks off. I still put out some videos, but I didn't do the John Campea Show on a regular basis. And here's the point of all this. If I ever had any question in my head over the years about how incredibly supportive our audience is here on the John Campea Show and the John Campea channel, if I ever had any question about how supportive our community is, the one good thing that came out of 2020 for me was that any of those questions were put to rest. Because even in a year with no movies, and even in a year as crappy as this has been, and even in a year where there's no day by day, like tons of, 10 items to pick from in the movie news feeds every single day to talk about, even without that there, you guys have been here. And you guys have been supportive of this channel. And you guys have day in, day out continued to send in your questions for our main topics, or sent in the tip questions, or watched the videos after the fact and shared the videos after the fact and made comments on the videos and click the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel. Through, as far as a movie considerations go, the worst possible year you could have, you guys have been here. And you guys have continued to support this show. And I was having a conversation with Rob about this the other day, about what an incredible testimony that is to how much our audience supports this. Whether it's just with your views, your likes, your comments, your tips, whatever, you guys have done that. And I just wanted to take a second here as we start this new year to say to all of you guys who have been here, helped build this community, supported this show, as we start the new year that will hopefully, for movies, be a better year than 2020 was. I wanted to take a moment to just dedicatedly say thank you to all of you guys for all of that, for that support, for being here, for building this community, for making it matter. YouTube still tells me it's not a good idea to do a 2-hour daily show. And yet here we are. So guys, seriously, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. Here's to 2020. Raise a glass if you got it, my friends. Here's to 2020. May it bring us great movies. May it bring us great conversations. May it bring us great times. And may it bring us great stories on the screens that we love to talk about. Guys, and here is to you. So thank you for that so much, guys. Very, very much. That will do it for me for today, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget, we're going to have a companion video a little bit later today. Check that out. And on Monday, Robert Meyer Burnett and I will be back again for the next installment of the John Campea Show. Guys, remember, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And Lord Vanderkill sends in a super chat in the live chat question. Thank you so much for that, Lord Vanderkill. We're going to have a next thing, but there's still spikes. It's still dangerous out there. We've been hearing more and more people dying out there right now. Guys, please do the 4 main things. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. That'll do it for me for now, guys. My name is John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.